Hey, whose birthday is it? This person right here. So yeah, it's my birthday, which seems like the perfect day to share with you how old I am, which has been like a burning question on the internet, especially since my video where I announced that I'm pregnant. 25 weeks, 25 weeks. So in my pregnancy announcement video, I mentioned my age and it was questionable if I would even be able to conceive naturally or easily. And that spurred a lot of questions and a lot of comments came in asking, how old are you? Do you mind if I ask how old you are? Which I totally understand. I'm definitely gonna share with you how old I am. And before I do that though, I wanna share, why is this a concern and what do we know about fertility as we age? And what are the concerns about being pregnant at my age? If you're over 35 and you've been pregnant, then the term advanced maternal age is nothing new to you. And you may even be familiar with the term geriatric uterus, which I hate. And yet in medicine, when we are over 35, our uterus is considered geriatric or old. Does fertility decline with age? Yes, it absolutely does. Does that mean that for you, you're gonna have difficulty conceiving, like most definitely if you wait until your late 30s or early 40s? No, that's not necessarily true for you. Here's what we know to be true about fertility. And these, of course, are estimates and they're generalizations, and it won't necessarily mean it's true for you. But the average healthy couple, nothing wrong, in their 20s and 30s will have about a 25 to 30% chance of conceiving in a single menstrual cycle. Now this declines as we age. Once a woman gets into her later 30s, the chance of conceiving declines, and by the time they're in their 40s, it's about less than 10% chance each menstrual cycle that you'll be able to conceive. As I will remind you in this video and all my videos, what's true for me is not going to be true for you. And why I brought up the age factor is not because I wanted to freak anyone out, and some people got freaked out and they're like, oh my God, how old are you? And does that mean I'm not gonna be able to conceive? And that's not what I was saying. What I was saying is that I'm at the age where, yes, it's around that less than 10% chance that I'd be able to conceive in a single menstrual cycle. In addition to that, I had COVID and I had long haulers. Enter brand new virus and a brand new condition, and we have no idea what impact that's going to have on fertility. And there were and still are women who are reporting losing their menstrual cycle and becoming infertile with COVID. And we need a lot more data to understand, specifically with contracting the virus, what impact does that have on your reproductive health? Now, on top of all of that, I also have an autoimmune condition known as Hashimoto's thyroiditis. My immune system likes to attack my thyroid given the opportunity. I have been in remission. My TPO antibodies have been undetectable for years now. I feel amazing. I'm well managed on my medication. I'm gonna do a whole video about this, but it is still something where I've got the age, I've got the COVID, I've got the Hashimoto's, and that trifecta definitely left a question in my mind of whether or not I would be able to conceive naturally, if it would be easy, and what that would look like for me. And so again, this is the variables that come into play and really that holistic perspective we have to take with fertility. Now, spoiler alert, this is not meant to make anyone feel bad, but we were able to conceive on our first try, which was a shocker to me. We actually decided, we finally were like, okay, I was on my period. We're gonna do this thing. Okay, we're gonna do this thing. Okay, I know when I'm gonna ovulate and we're gonna try. And I thought for sure that we were not going to get pregnant the first try. And that was unexpected. It was so unexpected that if you saw my first video where I announced my pregnancy, I actually needed my child to confirm if he saw that blue line, because I was like, that can't be a blue line. That was like my third pregnancy test, and I walked out of the bathroom and he was there. And with my patients, I would say, whether it's a faint blue line or a strong blue line, if the line is there, then it's a positive pregnancy test until proven otherwise. But when it comes comes to yourself, I totally was like, no, can everyone else see this too? So it was a bit of a surprise, and I feel I'm very grateful. Also want to say that a lot of work went into that. And I will be sharing a whole video on my fertility protocol, so just make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. I know a lot of you want to learn about that. It's coming. I'm looking at all your questions, and it's coming your way. We know oxidative stress plays a factor in our egg quality and can affect our fertility, which COVID and Hashimoto's together are dishing out plenty of oxidative stress, which is why it was also a question of, would my fertility be impacted? Now, something that I know because I am a physician is that as we age, our egg quality declines, our risk for chromosomal abnormalities increases, things like fibroids and other factors that can impede our fertility, those also increase as we age. Now, none of this is like a final nail in the coffin to say that you won't be able to get pregnant or have a healthy pregnancy, but it is something that's worth being aware of, and being aware of it as I was, it was a concern in the back of my mind. And I keep explaining that because I think some of you were just shocked to see that I was concerned about my fertility. It's one of those like blessing curse kind of situations of being a doctor. If you are a mom of advanced maternal age, then it'll really resonate with you when I say that every time I go to the doctor, it feels like it's a discussion about how my body is literally trying to kill my baby. And that might sound really dramatic if you are not in your late 30s or early 40s and having a baby, but like that is literally how it feels sometimes. And I go in, they want to do ultrasounds all the time, listen to the baby, run the tests, and that's all great. And we're going to talk about like why would they want to do this? Why are they like a little bit concerned or a lot concerned about your health and your baby's health? Lots of my patients have actually said to me, in this advanced maternal age bracket, that they have felt like their doctors expect them to fail the test. Like they're going to run these tests, but they already expect that they have gestational diabetes, or that they are already prepping them saying like, you'd likely have a chromosomal abnormality, or you're going to already have a miscarriage. Like, we're planning for this. And we're just going to be doing things to confirm that. And, I believed them when they said that to me. And it is also something that I'm experiencing as well. And I definitely am like, wow, this is very much how in the conventional OB paradigm, like it feels. It doesn't feel good. The way you are treated in some regards is just so pathologized. It's like you are so problematic, and the expectation is that your body can't do what it's designed to do and is, inherently already broken. And I bring that up because it's not that I don't have great doctors. In fact, I have a high-risk OB who is amazing. I love her. I think she's fantastic. She has some of the best bedside manner I have ever experienced. She is super sharp. She totally understands Hashis. There's so much that I love about her. And, so I have 3 OBs. So that's the other thing, is that the older you are, the more providers that you get. And there's nothing that they're doing that's bad or wrong. It's just this sense, this way that you're viewed and you're looked at and you're treated. And I just think it's important to speak to that because I'm now experiencing it. And my patients for a long time have told me these stories. I didn't live that story, and now I'm living that story, and I identify with everything that they said. And so I bring this up because, one, I don't think it has to be this way. I think that we could be approaching this advanced maternal age in a much different way, in a much more graceful way, in a way that feels a lot more supportive. But the other thing is that I want you to understand, where your doctor might be coming from. And if you're feeling that way too, this is something that, there's times I'm like, the human in me is like, I hate this. There's times I'm going to the doctor's appointment and I feel like I'm like going to be going to like war because of like the interventions that they want to talk about that I don't want to have unless absolutely necessary. And that might feel like a dramatic way of putting it, but it very much feels like I'm like, okay, I gotta like be ready, hold my ground, like ask all the questions. And even though I know these things, like I know these things as a provider, it's still as a patient, being in that patient role it can be like really difficult at times. So I'm gonna rattle off a list for you, and I don't want you to freak out because it like kind of freaks me out when you hear the things that I'm going to say, but this is all a very good reason to have prenatal care, to make sure that you meet with your provider regularly and that you are in communication with the doctor. Even as I share that like I don't really like the way I feel sometimes meeting with doctors or the way that they view me because of my age, it's still very, very important that I get my testing, that I get my scans, that I do everything to make sure that I'm healthy and baby's healthy, because this list that I'm going to rattle off, you can prevent some of these things, or we can catch it in medicine and make sure that it doesn't become the big scary outcome that it potentially could. You know, as you enter into your 40s, being pregnant, you are at higher risk of preeclampsia, so having hypertension, high blood pressure, of gestational diabetes, of having an ectopic pregnancy, of having a spontaneous abortion, which is another word, that's the medical term for a miscarriage. You're at higher risk of a postpartum hemorrhage. You're at higher risk of having fetal abnormalities, so chromosomal abnormalities, difficulty with baby's growth, placental abnormalities, issues with the placenta growing. There's also a higher risk of having a stillbirth, of having a preterm birth, of having low APGAR scores. So when baby's born, having a low APGAR score. You are also at higher risk of having a C-section, which in some ways, you know, people argue, well, it's just because you're older, you're gonna have trouble birthing, you're gonna need a C-section. And yet I know that, I mean, before I ever stepped foot in my doctor's office, I was already receiving, you know, paperwork talking about going to the hospital and, you know, how I was not allowed to go past 40 weeks. And at my first visit, there were already discussions about, you know, we may want to consider an induction. And that just felt, I was like, yo, I'm 6 weeks pregnant. Like, can we just like slow the roll and like make sure everything is healthy and normal to begin with? But those conversations start really early on in some providers' offices when you are in your late 30s, early 40s. I mean, I do know patients who in their 20s, their doctor was already talking to them about how you're going to need an induction at 39, 40 weeks. And, you know, let me just say, like, thank goodness for modern medicine. Thank goodness that we can induce, have a C-section, do all of these amazing things for childbirth. And yet it is something that, like, just because of my chronological age, doesn't matter how healthy my labs are, what my lifestyle is like. I'm not being viewed as this whole person. I'm being viewed as this number. And because I'm this number, I therefore am going to already need all these interventions. And that is something that when I rattle off that list to you, which totally is scary, that you can understand that your doctor is saying like, okay, this is likely what we're going to need to do, and that they've got this real concern there. And yet I have faith in my body, and there are providers that have faith in a body like mine to have a baby. And there are lots of different providers around the world who don't feel this way about pregnancy and don't feel that a late 30s, early 40s woman is somehow less able to birth naturally. Today is my birthday and I'm 40, which means I am the magical number that makes my doctors really panic about me birthing a human into this world. And it also means that my child is going to be born when I'm 40. And because of my experience thus far and a lot of other things that have come up, I am going to be doing something completely different, seemingly radical, maybe even scary to some people, in terms of bringing this human into this world. And I will make a whole video and share all about that as well. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you following along in my journey and watching, and your comments and the messages that we've received. It's really meant so much to myself and my family. And yeah, I'm 40. I don't know how and when this happened. Well, I have an idea how this happened, but I think like any of us, it's the older we get, we're like, where did the time go? Which is something that in my COVID journey really gave me reflection, that there's only so much time we have and we've got to make the most of it.